Koga vs ZG ends, and I guess how the majority thought it would be. According to the poll I ran when the fight was about to begin, we had 57% of you saying it was going to be Koga, but I did get the sense that a large amount of people started rooting for ZG throughout this fight, and I won't lie, I kinda went down that path as well, but Koga was the winner. He's training with Kano, Gito and Lolong, and everything he did when fighting for Purgatory and Kangen over the time skip has improved Koga greatly. However, I do have things to talk about regarding the Garuki and Akoya situation, but that will be later on. First, let's talk about Yan, who we get to see this chapter, providing more insight about himself and ZG. Firstly, him and Wulong the Connector are still in Japan, and it seems like they're quite close to the fight between ZG and Koga, as Tenjin, one of the direct subordinates, was able to report back to Yan, meaning it's a possibility they may do something crazy in the coming chapters, but I'm personally expecting something from the two direct subordinates who are most likely very close to ZG and Koga watching the fight, and may do something next chapter to save ZG, or maybe when ZG most likely tries to escape, something crazy happens. We'll have to wait for that. But Yan bets that ZG had already lost, which he's pretty much correct about, saying it's not because he isn't powerful, it's more of the thing we've been talking about the last few chapters, his personality, his drive, what he's willing to do, everything like that, calling him simply a scumbag, which is great to see. He does mention that when it comes to base specs, so the Superman syndrome and their physical power and potentially speed, they're around the same, and that ZG has more of a knack for martial arts, meaning he's more of a prodigy than Yan. However, the big difference is that Yan continued his training while ZG was just lazy and got his men to do everything for him. My guess is that Wulong was the one who's been training Yan ever since Yan got appointed as the head, and it's even possible he was training Yan and ZG before that as a connector, as we don't really officially know his exact role in the Worm organization or really in the story, but we'll have to wait and see that. That's just my guess currently. So Yan most likely continued his training, seems like someone much more intelligent compared to ZG, and a lot more chill, especially when he's alongside Wulong, who doesn't really like talking about anything serious, it seems like, but it does give me the sense that he is in the process of training Yan still based on this conversation. Let me know your thoughts on that down below. Now let's get into Koga and ZG with us getting some more reveals about both of them. But before that, if you haven't already and enjoyed Kengan content, make sure to hit that subscribe button, leave a like. Now let's get into it. Oma praises Koga a little bit, which is great to see. However, we still haven't seen the flashback of the fight between Koga and Oma before the recent time skip, which I'm personally disappointed with. Hopefully we still get to see that in the coming chapters or just sometime in the future, even though most likely Oma need Koga. I just want to see how it truly went. But it seems as though Koga has been practicing his kicks much more, and his base or overall fighting style is still stemming around his Rokushin karate, in combination of course with his fist eye. This is how I really expected it to go. Koga's uncle is Joji, the pinnacle of Rokushin karate in the Kengan verse. Of course, Koga most likely has been practicing Rokushin karate his whole life. I doubt he would switch his style altogether from training with someone like Kano, Gito, Lolong, or anyone else Koga really trained with. They're just more so improving his base skills and assisting him in fully utilizing his fist eye, such as developing pre-initiative and other variations of foresight, stuff like that. That's most likely what he did with Lolong and Kano, as we saw last chapter, him kinda using that better. And now his Rokushin karate, I'm guessing, will continue to improve. His Crescent Moon Kick is something we've seen him use even back in his first trial Kengan match. That was his main go-to move, and it seems like this is his main finisher that he's been practicing, and he's able to drop ZG with this kick, so he's quite deadly with that, and seems to be very good when it comes to kicking. We also learned about a technique that ZG has been using, with one of the members of Nikaido Ren squad calling it the heavy whip technique, where a number of Chinese wushu schools teach a similar technique. So I'm guessing the Connector was the one who taught him this. That's just my theory about who trained ZG before he did his own thing regarding the worm or got cucked, as we saw in the flashback last week. but he's able to use his Whip Strike to do some pretty crazy damage, reminding me of either Bando's Whip Strike or potentially a sense of Rito's like Razor's Edge, but there's a lot more effort going into ZG dealing like something similar to the amount of damage Rito can do with his Razor's Edge, as we saw here, as Himuro points out. So that's pretty cool. Seems like something that can ignore durability, as he's able to cut up Koga's arms here, and we see Koga actually dodging all these attacks. So if you don't dodge him, that can do some pretty lethal damage most likely. So that's something good to really talk about in ZG's kit and what he can use in like what if battles and stuff like that. We also get to see the thing ZG had in his mouth that we saw at the start of the fight. I'm still not too sure what it is. I thought it would be like a flash bomb for a second, but again, I don't really know what it is. If you have any idea, let me know down below. But Koga was able to counter it, while also anticipating ZG would have another trick up his sleeve, which is good on Koga's side. He used his Fist Eye to pretty much see it coming and quickly counter it. And that's how he's able to pretty much shock ZG and then land the direct Crescent Moon kick, dropping ZG. It seems like Koga, when beating up ZG this chapter, he had a lot of perfect timing moments, similar to how Kuroki back in Usher was able to throw perfectly timing attacks or do perfectly timing martial arts. And when Kuroki was actually doing that against Kanagito, a lot of like basic regular attacks had names to them, and for Koga's block on ZG's like thing he had in his mouth, it's actually named as a wrist block. So that does remind me of that a little bit, and as we know, that most likely all connects into pre-initiative and stuff like that. So that's something cool I wanted to mention quickly. And of course, the thing in this fight that made the ultimate difference was Koga's resolve. ZG going into the fight wasn't really focusing on the fight itself or really like defeating him in a fair fight, and he got shit on for that. But what do I think will happen in the next chapter? So if ZG is knocked out, I guess he may be captured and we could cut to like the two direct subordinates maybe getting confronted by Garuki and Akoya potentially. That could be something interesting. Or if ZG is still conscious, or next chapter we see him waking up, we could see ZG trying to escape and maybe Oma stopped him or something like that. Or it's a possibility ZG could be successful in escaping, but I think that would be kinda weird. And I do get the sense that the Connector and Yarn could make some crazy appearance very shortly, and that may result in the end of ZG or something like that. A lot of possibilities in the coming chapters, let me know your thoughts as well. But as a whole, this fight, I didn't have too many problems with it. Of course, I would like it to be a little bit longer, but that's been like a reoccurring trend ever since the Purgatory tournament ended. I personally wasn't too sure who was going to win, considering what Zia did against Akoya and Ryuki like a few chapters before this fight actually begun. So it seems like Akoya is this kinda irrelevant at this point. Koga should be able to beat up current Akoya or even peak Akoya. Ryuki still, he's being done dirty, but I feel as though he still hasn't gone all out. Still question marks around him about his true power and really a lot of stuff about Garuki. So I wouldn't like personally say Koga's definitively stronger than Garuki, but I know a lot of people are just going to say that for the sake of it. But I'll just wait on Garuki for a little bit. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people in the future of the story, or even shortly most likely, or hopefully I should say. But that's everything for today's video. Check out the other stuff in the description. Shout out to the mad lads who support the channel via the Patreon, and yep, that's it guys. Peace.